Hey everybody, how are you doing today? It is time for an unplanned video, and I was hoping to not have to do any of these while my setup was being, reconstructed. As you can see, we are not in the usual place right now, but hey, when your face of the franchise star quarterback decides to kick the hornet's nest a little bit, I guess you just have to make a video or two about it, right? So we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the Russell Wilson situation today, and hopefully it's the last time I have to do one of these unplanned videos before I get my computer built. So the last few days have, obviously, as I've already discussed in other streams, really put the Russell Wilson situation into the forefront of pretty much every Seahawks fan's mind. And understandably, I mean, I've run some streams in recent days where the intention was to talk about tight ends and centers and guards and stuff, and invariably people want to talk about Wilson because that's a big deal. So let's do it. Let's talk about Russell Wilson because stuff happens fast in the NFL, and it's possible that in a few days Wilson will restructure his contract and this will all be a thing of the past, or in a couple days he could be traded. So let's talk. Now, for my part, I can say in my Discord, in my comments, in my stream chats, I've seen a lot of people come around to the idea of trading Wilson this offseason. And one thing I want to say before I get into the meat of this video is I actually think that's really cool, because as a fan, and I know this firsthand, it is hard to accept life after your superstar, life after the face of your franchise, life after that player that you really loved, life after the player who helped you win a lot. So as fans, our ability to say, hey, Russell Wilson might be moving on this offseason, or even more, what Russell Wilson needs to move on this offseason, or we need to move on from Russell Wilson rather, that shows that you're in the right headset as a fan. That shows that you are a fan of the team, not a fan of the players. And I think it's really cool that a lot of people who maybe wouldn't have been willing to even discuss this possibility until 3-4 months ago are now openly considering not only that this could happen, but maybe that this should happen. So I don't want to discourage anybody from talking about stuff like this, because as it will be for every Seahawks player who ever plays for this team that you fall in love with, there will come a time where it is time to move on. Now, that being said, I've run a stream where we talked about the Wilson situation. I've talked about it in my Discord. I've talked about it a little bit in comments. I've seen all these things that people are saying, and I want to go a little deeper into these conversations, because I feel like a lot of what I'm seeing from people who are talking about trading Wilson this offseason is along the lines of, we should trade him because I don't want him here anymore, so we should trade him because if we trade him, he won't be here anymore, and that will make me happy. And that's understandable, but the problem is the conversation or the thought process kind of ends there. It's a very simplistic idea of, I don't like him, therefore I don't want him here. If he's not here, I will be happy. And some people don't like him because of all of his off-field crap. Some people don't like him because he's acting selfish this offseason. Some people don't like him because of his play, whatever. That's all completely understandable. However, there's some circumstantial and situational stuff that really needs to be considered before you move on from Wilson. And to the people watching this video who do want to trade Russell Wilson this offseason, I'm not saying that that's a stupid idea and, Wilson's amazing and perfect and you should never want to move on from him and you're not a real fan or anything like that. Quite the opposite. I actually think it proves that you are a real fan, that you're willing to consider the team needing to move on from Wilson. But there's more going on when it comes to getting rid of Wilson than just getting rid of Wilson. So here's the situation. As of right now, there's a rule in the NFL that a team cannot trade 3 straight first-round picks in the same trade anyway. you're only allowed to trade your current year and future next year first round pick. So, right off the bat, if you had fantasies of getting a team to trade you their next 5 first round picks or 6 first round picks, that's literally impossible. The NFL does not allow it. And I didn't find this out until recently, and it kind of bummed me out and quickly moved me off some of my wilder fantasies of getting a massive haul for Wilson. So that's number one, and that's not necessarily a big deal. However, let's talk this through and try to follow what I'm saying here. Russell Wilson, if he is traded, will count for $39 million against the salary cap in 2021 for the Seahawks. That is more than 20% of the salary cap. And that money cannot be restructured or moved to a later season in any way that I know of. So basically, if you trade Wilson, you are foregoing over 20% of your team's salary cap in 2021. And that makes it very hard to compete in 2021 because we already know we have free agents that we need to figure out who we're going to keep and who we're not going to keep. We have veterans that are making a lot of money that we may have to make tough decisions on. We have needs that need to be filled in free agency. At least some of them need to be. So it's very tough to address these needs in a way that allows us to compete at a high level in 2021, and it will be especially hard with $39 million dead against the cap. And all that would be something I would be willing to deal with were it not for the fact that, and I want to remind people of this because it seems like some people have forgotten, we do not have a first round pick in 2022's draft. Tanking in 2021, or if you don't want to use the word tanking, call it being a bad team for the sake of future fruits, is not an option because we do not have that pick. If we trade Russell Wilson with the goal of building a long-term winner by maybe 2024 and we just accept bad seasons until then, well, that's not going to work out very well for us because we don't have our first round pick in 2022. So yeah, that really complicates things because now if you trade Wilson, you are obligated to try to build a winner in 2021 because there is no benefit to tanking. And I've said it before, I don't think teams really tank, but the point is, a bad season does not have any silver lining, especially given the fact that Pete Carroll just got an extension, so it's not like a bad season is going to get him fired in all likelihood. So, look, if you want to trade Russell Wilson, you have to do it with a team that has a quarterback that they can give you or the means to get you a new quarterback who is good enough to win games now. Some people have said somebody like a Derek Carr from the Las Vegas Raiders makes sense, and in theory it does, but the thing is, Derek Carr is making a lot of money. And if you take on Derek Carr's 2021 salary, on top of all the dead money that Wilson will be taking up on a different team, the $39 million that I talked about, well, you don't exactly have a ton of room to address your other needs, and you are going to have to fill those needs, especially with a quarterback like a Derek Carr. You need to make your offensive line much better because we've seen what happens to Derek Carr when he gets hit. It doesn't go well for him. So not only do you have to acquire a good quarterback, he probably has to be somewhat cheap. He has to be affordable. Because if you acquire somebody like a Derek Carr, you're going to have maybe $60 million on your salary cap in quarterback. And by the way, the quarterback play you're going to be getting for that $60 million plus is not even going to be that good. Yeah, Derek Carr's a good quarterback. He's not an MVP. So how are you going to compete given that? Well, you might acquire some other young, cheap, good players. You know, every team has a couple of young guys still on their rookie contract, but can you get them? So you can see how quickly the problem builds. And that doesn't even touch into some other stuff that you could maybe talk about. Like, for instance, I don't believe that Pete Carroll is interested in doing another rebuild. And this is purely subjective. You may disagree, but I don't think that Pete Carroll at his advanced age wants to do another rebuild. Because when you're rebuilding, you're looking at having a couple of bad seasons in the hopes that you'll be good again in a couple years. And I don't think Pete is going to want to go through the arduous and long and difficult task of rebuilding, losing for a season or two, or maybe even three, in the hopes that maybe you will be good again. I feel like that he would probably choose to just retire at that point, or at the very least, or more realistically, since he has a lot of power in this organization, he would refuse to take a course of action that would lead to a rebuild. So if you want to trade Wilson, you can't just trade him for a bunch of assets. You need to trade him for assets that are going to help you win now and later. So maybe your plan is to get a high first-round draft pick in the Wilson trade and use that pick on a young quarterback. That works. But what else are you going to get in that trade? Because you're still going to have that $40 million on Wilson. And by the way, you've just taken away one of our best opportunities to create cap space in 2021, because restructuring Wilson's deal is one of the best weapons we have in our arsenal right now. We're not going to be able to do that if he's traded. That money is just going to be there, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So now you've actually made our cap situation in 2021 a lot worse. And just finding a way to build a winning team around all those obstacles, it's very tough to imagine. You're going to have a ton of dead money because of the Wilson trade. You still have veterans that you can either cut and eat some dead money on, or stick with and have a big part of your cap go to them, and they may or may not earn that money on the field with their play. You have a massive hole on your roster to fill, because however you feel about Wilson, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he played like it last year for the most part. And basically, trading Wilson is not just about trading Wilson. You have to trade him for the right stuff. You have to get the right stuff in return to make it worth your time. And to the people out there who say, I'm done with Wilson, I want to trade him this offseason to the Raiders or Bears or whoever, that's fine. But what I'm going to say to you is, you need to construct a scenario that works for this specific team, because we cannot rebuild. Or at the very least, any rebuild is going to be so stunted right now, there's no point in doing it. We cannot rebuild, we need to reload. So you need to find a trade that allows us to reload and reload well, because I can't think of anything worse than having a bad season with no first round pick. That's a level beyond hell. That's deep. That's the deepest circle of hell. You're losing and you're not even going to get anything out of it. There is no silver lining in that cloud. So you need to reload with a young, cheap, good quarterback and other good, young, cheap pieces. That's the only way I can see this working. If you can come up with a good scenario that involves all those things, then I'm willing to listen. But for the moment, a lot of the get rid of Wilson stuff that I'm seeing seems to be more about anger with his attitude and the things he's been saying and doing lately, which I'm there with you guys. I can relate. I'm annoyed with him a little bit right now as well. I don't trust him on the field a lot right now. He needs to earn my trust back. But that doesn't mean you can just give him away. That doesn't mean you can trade him for a bunch of stuff that isn't even going to do you that much good right now. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. Hope I helped give you all something to think about as we go through these difficult days with Wilson and try to figure out what we want for our team. And yeah, if anybody has a trade scenario that addresses all my concerns, post it down below and I'll let you know what I think. But if you go into 2021 with Geno Smith, you will be throwing away a season for nothing. So got to do a little better than that. All right, peace out, go Hawks. Video tomorrow, stream tomorrow. See y'all later.